and welcome to the 7th variation. This variation is interesting because it starts putting what we've learned into a musical context by varying the dynamics. You get to do the same figure in different parts of the bow. So you start off with mezzo forte using the whole bow. Now, the first thing I would suggest is to use a simple figure to familiarize yourself with the bowing so that you don't need to worry about your left hand. So do something like this. Now you're using the whole bow, and the bow division is as follows. You use about half the bow for the first two notes. Then you lift, bring back down again and do the spiccato at the frog. So you go lift, bring back down, lift again. Remember to curl your fingers and bend your thumb. And do the spiccato at the frog, almost only finger and hand action. And then you travel back to the tip using the whole bow. I'll show you again. Lift, bring back down, lift. Practice that repeatedly until it's easy. The last 8 bars of the variation, you have the same figure, but it's piano and only upper half. Now, the first thing I would recommend is to use slightly more bow than the upper half. It gives you a bit more bow and it enables you to do the spiccato slightly below the middle. You have a bit more control and it will sound a bit better. So just add a couple of centimeters to the half of the bow and it will solve a lot of problems. Practice the same figure, only using just over half the bow. When you familiarize yourself with that, then you can start practicing them alternately. First mezzo forte using the whole bow, and straight afterwards piano using just over half the bow. That will give you a lot of security for when you actually start working at the variation itself. Now the middle part, we have 2 slurred 8th notes and then we have spiccato. It starts piano and then you're supposed to do a crescendo up to a forte. So what you do is you start off approximately at the point of balance, I would say perhaps slightly below. And as you make your crescendo, you use more bow and you go further towards the frog, so that you have more weight. The frog is heavier, so you can add more weight and that will help with the crescendo. Do that again in a simple figure so that you can organize your bowing. That's perfect for piano, but as you get louder, you will need more bow and more weight. So you start softly, and then you make a crescendo. More bow and closer towards the frog. And practice that, making a crescendo and actually a decrescendo again, because that will make it nice and familiar for you to change how much bow you use. So you start piano, crescendo, diminuendo. So practice that before you start practicing the variation. It will make things a lot easier. Now, the first 8 bars of the variation, we have the same dynamic. It's mezzo forte all the way. And we play the figures with the whole bow. So I would suggest to start slowly because you want the same articulation in each figure, which means you have to have the same bow division. So make sure you lift your bow exactly in the same place and bring it back down exactly in the same place. Start as slow as you need so that you can control that, and watch your bow so that you don't use more bow or less bow without intending to. If you do it at that speed with an exact bow division, then that's a very, very good basis for bringing it up to speed. Don't bring up the speed before you're completely familiarized with doing it slowly. That's very important. If you bring it up to speed too fast, you'll just lose an exact bow division and then you won't have the same articulation in every figure. So keep it at a slow speed and speed it up in very, very gradual steps. Now, the next figures are two slowed eighth notes with spiccato, starting piano with the crescendo. There again, make sure your bow division is exact. Start at the point of balance, and as you make the crescendo, use more bow and go closer to the frog so that you have more weight. Now this end, which I just played, is probably the most interesting thing in the variation. It's also what will probably take most work, because your forte, you have, and then you have only one eighth note to get to the tip of the bow, to be able to continue in piano in the upper half. Now, if you're traveling in only one eighth note from the frog to the tip, you obviously have a very high speed of bow. Now, for a high speed of bow, you have to make sure your bow is straight, and you have to make sure that you have enough weight on the string so that you can control the bow at that high speed. So practice that bit isolated on its own a couple of times so that you're familiar with it. It's okay if you take a bit of a longer break before you start the piano afterwards, because that will give you a good amount of time to switch from one dynamic to the other. You can take the break as long as you like at first. So you go, now take all the time you need. And as you're more familiar with it, you can shorten the break until it's just one eighth note as notated. So that's probably the part you're most likely going to have to practice most, because you need a lot of control of the bow. And then you need a fast bow all the way up to the tip. And then you continue in piano. So just practice that isolated until you're familiar with that. And the end of the variation, you have the same thing as at the beginning, just only in piano and using the upper half. As I mentioned before, I would suggest to use a little bit more than the upper half, because that will give you a bit more control for the spiccato notes. That gives you a bit more control than if you're forced to do the spiccato notes in the middle of the bow. Okay, I hope you enjoy this, and we'll be doing the next variation soon.